Welcome to Pottery Visited, episode 79. I'm Tori.
And I'm Shay.
Today we are covering chapter 19 of Goblet of Fire, the Hungarian Horntail.
Or, as we like to call it, burning fire and cutting words.
So Harry is dealing with the after effects of procrastination, which is so relatable because he's finding out that the first task is happening very soon and he doesn't even know what's happening or what he's going to do.
He's been sulking for so long about, woe is me, I got chosen, which I mean, fair. I didn't want this, why is this happening? That he forgot to just be like, oh wait, this is happening. You know, he's like still dealing with the emotional turmoil of being selected. He doesn't have the time to deal with the emotional turmoil of being a champion and the actual work he should be putting in as one.
I also think it's crazy that the first task is supposed to be like a complete surprise, and it's obviously very dangerous. We'll find out what it is later. They have no idea what they're going to be facing.
Yeah, absolutely no clue. No, like, preparation tips, no hints. Just like, good luck, kids.
They were just supposed to roll up and deal with it.
Like, I guess I would work on, like, just like based on like having done escape rooms and stuff, you'd want to work on some combat skills and you'd want to work on some like invisibility, sneaking, being hard to catch, hard to stop, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe speed, like something that makes you faster. That's always helpful to be able to do things faster.
But yeah, that tournament just makes no sense to me. But Harry's kind of still dealing with being an outcast at school, but it isn't as bad because people are kind of like, you know, over it. They're still like ignoring him and stuff, but like they aren't being like outwardly like rude to him anymore. But then Rita Skeeter's article comes out.
Ugh.
And it's supposed to be covering the Triwizard Tournament, but surprisingly, it is just basically a piece on Harry. Just Harry.
Yeah, a completely fictitious like deep dive on Harry.
And it's obviously like he could have sued for this because nothing he is quoted saying he ever said.
Absolutely. It's absolutely entirely made up. It's all kinds of crimes.
Poor Cedric's not even mentioned, and I think Fleur and Victor get like one line in it, and I still don't get like how Rita is employed, because how does she get like a story writing about the Triwizard Tournament? And then she actually publishes a piece about Harry.
Honestly, Rita really needs to be sorted out. I mean, she misspelled Fleur and Crumb, first of all. Like, what? Like, does she not even have an editor? Like, to me, someone at the newspaper should do, like, spell checking. But also, to a certain extent, you have to, like, write reasonably quality stuff. Like, this is sort of like from before the internet being a big thing. So fake news wasn't common. Like, what was printed in the newspaper was factually provable, or they would have to write like a follow-up the next week saying like, sorry for the error, further information shows that is incorrect. Like, you wrote what was true in the newspaper.
Or else.
What could be proven. Like, you had to have sources. You had to do actual journalism. Like, I really don't think it makes any sense that she even has that job. Like, she's not doing news reporting. So I think that maybe she like blackmailed the editor to get and keep that job, because she's not actually following through on like what she was told to write about. She's breaking the law. She's not writing the truth. She's not doing research. She's doing none of the basic elements of being an actual journalist. So I think like blackmail is probably the most likely. Like, even though people love reading juicy fake news and gossip, the Daily Prophet isn't supposed to be gossip. It's supposed to be the newspaper. So she really shouldn't be there.
I really think that Rita's like a freelance writer, so she writes for the Daily Prophet. And I think it's also mentioned she writes for like Witch Weekly that Ron's mom reads or whatever. So maybe she has like, I don't know, she knows someone owes her a favor. So she gets to like, just like, I don't know. I could see her being the person that like finds things out about people and kind of like blackmails them for like favors or like pieces to write and stuff like that.
Yeah, blackmail. She didn't get in there by being a good journalist.
Oh, no. Definitely not.
Yeah. And, like, writing something like that absolutely just destroys the credibility of the entire newspaper. Like, now every time you read any article, you're going to be like, is that what happened? Or is this a weird side story entirely made up that completely ignores the actual news story of what's happening? Because, yikes, it's setting a really dangerous precedent, and it's bad for the paper, and it's bad for the tournament. It's just abysmal.
Another part is that Rita calls Hermione Harry's girlfriend, which, you know, doesn't really cause issues for them, but like outwardly the school's talking about it because, scandalous. They're 14 and like dating is all crazy stuff. But then she also she quotes Colin Creevey being Harry's good friend.
Oh my God, he wishes.
Or good close friend. And when I read that, I just thought about you and your Colin Creevey rant last episode.
Freaking hate him. This is like someone asking me how Taylor Swift's relationship is going. Like, she seems really happy. He's a great guy. Clearly he really respects her opinions and values her as an artist and a person. Like, what the fuck do I know? I'm just a fangirl. I'm not a part of that relationship. Like, I have as much justification to talk about Taylor Swift's relationship in the press as Colin Creevey does. But like, it's just like, he has no right to say those things. It's super gross and super snivy. But I also kind of think Hermione likes it a little bit, and they don't give us a lot for that, but you have to imagine Hermione is made fun of a lot. People say she's not pretty, they say she's plain, they make fun of her teeth. She hasn't had any boys show interest in her, you know what I mean? And I think having someone write in the newspaper that like, the Harry Potter has a big old crush on you, even if he's your friend and it feels gross to imagine Harry having a crush on you, someone who's deemed as like a popular, desirable guy being into you, probably she's like, oh, people think Harry's into me. So people think, I must be really clever and I must be really interesting and I must be sort of pretty because Harry's into me. So like, I think there's a little bit of like a like self-esteem boost, even though she knows it's fake. She's like, oh, people are seeing this, reading this and believing this. And like, it's not true. And I don't want it to be true, but it makes me feel good,
Yeah, Hermione wants to be seen as like a girl in this book. We really see like coming into like her femininity. And I feel like throughout the series, she's usually just praised for her intelligence and her like schoolwork and stuff, and she's not really praised or gets attention for how she looks, and she kind of tries to act like she's above it. But I do feel like at 14, being seen as like a valid, good dating option, even though she pretends that she doesn't really care about it, I think deep down she does care.
It's great to be told you're smart all the time, but the fact of the matter is the way society raises girls, you also want to be told you're pretty once in a while. And it's kind of sad, but it's true. And she was raised in a society, so...
Yeah, Harry's dealing with the fallout of the article, and he has this really embarrassing moment with Cho, where everyone's kind of quoting the article at him, and he's being really sarcastic, and he's yelling at people for quoting the article at him. But then Cho is just like, hey, Harry, you dropped this. And he's just like, great. Just embarrass myself in front of my crush. And I'm just like, he's just like us. He's just this awkward guy.
Yeah, I've definitely been there in life where you're stressed about a bunch of things and you snap at the wrong person.
And you're like, oh shit, like, great, now they hate me too.
Yeah, you're digging your own grave deeper, yeah. Poor Harry.
Yeah, Harry's also mad because he had this detention with Ron over the dueling incident last chapter, and he thought that, him and Ron would, make up, and the article came out, and then Ron just didn't talk to him during detention, and he's mad about that. And here's me being like, did Ron not talk to Harry because he saw the article? And he's like, what's going on with Harry and Hermione?
Mm-hmm. Or did he not talk to Harry because he's like, oh, look, another thing that's all about Harry Potter. Like when you're annoyed with someone and you have these like firm, maybe false beliefs that justify your feelings, anything that will like support your feelings being justified is going to be absorbed and not like critically analyzed. So as soon as they're like, Harry's a big spoiled kid and he thinks this is going to be the best time ever and he totally wants to be in the competition and all the girls love him, Ron's like, yeah, that sounds just like the Harry I know and that's why I hate him, like it justifies his feelings and supports how he feels and makes it feel like Ron isn't in the wrong for having these feelings. And not that you're ever in the wrong for having feelings, but in this case there's lots of evidence to why Ron should chill a bit. But it feels good to be supported in your feelings. When you say, I hate this person, and someone else says, yeah, they suck, it feels good. And that's what that article was for Ron, I think. It was a little bit of like yeah, you can hate Harry, it's fine. He has everything else. Might as well. Doesn't deserve you, Ron.
Ron thinks that he's enjoying the attention and being a champion, while meanwhile Harry's like about to like lose his mind. So fun tidbit, I forgot about this, but when I was reading this chapter, I remembered I wrote one of the first fan fictions I ever wrote and published was a Ron and Hermione fanfic about Ron's reaction to this Rita Skeeter article, which said Hermione was Harry's girlfriend.
That is such a beautiful writer's prompt, to take it and turn it into something.
Well, because we don't get Ron's reaction, and later on in the chapter, Ron kind of like, we know he's read the article, so I was wondering like what his reaction was, because does he know that Harry and Hermione are dating? Who knows? Is it another thing Harry hid from him? Who knows?
I feel like Ron probably knows they're not dating, but he probably, as soon as he hears it, it's like, great, another thing I want that Harry Potter gets.
Ron's not very aware, is definitely not aware of his feelings for Hermione at this point, but I do think it definitely is something that's like in the back of his mind, being like, wait, Harry and Hermione dating? Like,
I wonder if this triggers part of Ron realizing he likes Hermione. He reads it and he starts to feel jealousy in his stomach and he wonders why. Or maybe he starts liking Hermione because he wants things Harry has, and she's something he thinks in that moment. He's like, okay, Harry gets everything I want, and he has Hermione. Maybe I also wanted Hermione. What do you say about that, Harry?
Yeah, but that was a fun, like, blast from the past that I completely forgot about. But I do find it interesting how Rita paints Harry and Hermione in such a really positive light in this first, like, article, and obviously she changes the narrative as things go on in the series.
Yeah. I mean, as of then, Harry did everything she wanted, which was let her railroad him and make up quotes and treat him like a pawn in her attempts to make stories, you know? So, like, she's like, that's great. He's the easiest to manipulate. He's so young. He's a great story. And I'm going to make it the most interesting story so everyone will read my stuff. So I'm going to add a romance element. I'm going to add the tragic backstory details. I'm going to exaggerate them to make him look more sympathetic. Like, she's really turning him into a character in a story she's telling. And like, he's a character in a story we're reading, but not her story. Like, it's sheer madness. And I also think regarding the article that it is really, really sad that Molly believes it. Like, she reads the article and she's crying, thinking, oh, Harry cries about his parents still. I didn't know. And it's so heartbreaking to think, like, what that says about media literacy. Because, like, Molly has seen Harry and Hermione interact. I mean, maybe you wouldn't know who your kid's friend has a crush on, but you'd have an idea of how they, like, behave with each other. And she's met Harry. And, like, to think that she's reading this and believing all of these things, someone who actually knows him well and, like, is an adult who raised children who are all reasonably intelligent, like, the media literacy to just trust everything you read in the newspaper. You know, the newspaper wrote this, so it must be true.
Yeah. I find it weird Molly believes it.
Yeah, and it's not just, like, not believing it. It's also thinking, like, would Harry ever say those things to a reporter? Like, Harry has private things he does not share with the Weasleys, and they probably know there's things going on in his life he doesn't share with them. Why would he share it with everybody who reads the Daily Prophet? Like,
they know Harry pretty well by now. 4 years, like...
Yeah, it's so out of character for him. Like, to me, if I read that article, I would say she greatly misquoted him, or she took advantage of him and somehow compromised him emotionally before getting these quotes. Like, he did not willingly say these things, and I do not think he feels most of these things.
We were introduced to Rita Skeeter by Arthur saying that, like, she's, like, unreliable and, like, she makes up stories. And Mrs. Weasley knows this, so I find it weird that she's just kind of like, oh my god, poor Harry, all these things I didn't know. And it's like, Molly, come on.
I mean, maybe Molly and some of the readers enjoy Rita Skeeter's content kind of like bad celebrity gossip magazines. Like, it's not real life, you know what I mean? Like, Angelina Jolie isn't running for president, and whatever, Tom Cruise isn't dating Gwendolyn Christie from Game of Thrones. I don't know. Like, these are ridiculous things that are made up, but, like, it's people enjoy reading what feels like sort of harmless celebrity gossip just to entertain themselves. So, like, maybe that's why Rita Skeeter is still read. Like, a fraction of the population doesn't believe her, but they enjoy her lies enough that they let her get away with it. But, like, it still feels like the wrong place to put that. Like, it should be in not the newspaper. Maybe Witch Weekly makes more sense if it's like Cosmo for young witches, or like 17 magazine. They make stuff up more so there. But, like, the newspaper, it's supposed to be the news.
Hermione basically, like, you know, says, Harry, we should go to Hogsmeade. And she's kind of trying to force Ron and Harry to, like, you know, be friends again. And Harry's just like, you know what? Screw that. I'm going to wear my invisibility cloak the whole time because I'm over this.
Now he's making Hermione suffer for him and Ron's poor choices.
Hermione's a good friend because who wants to hang out with someone that's invisible?
Yeah, and she doesn't even have a cell phone. She can't even pretend she's talking on the phone. She just looks like a nutter.
She's talking to herself, and she goes with it because she's like, oh, Harry needs this. So that's fun.
Good friend behavior. So they go to the pub, and Ron is there with the twins and Lee Jordan, and it makes me really happy to know that he has other people in his life. Like, he has other people who can be friends, who can step up and keep him company during times like this. Like, it's just nice to remember that, like, they don't only have each other, they have other friends. And Ron specifically, because he has such a big family, has a support system. And it's nice to be, like, reminded. He's not with Harry and Hermione, and that's sad, but he's not alone.
Yeah, and Hermione knows that Harry needs her more than Ron does right now, so She's his support system. But while they're in Hogsmeade, they run into Hagrid, and Hagrid kind of is like really trying to be like suave, and it's like, Harry, meet me later. I got something to show you.
But he's not suave.
We also find out that Moody can see through invisibility cloaks, which is a fun tidbit that will come back later.
Which is cool. It's so cool. So I think the next part is really sad. Harry's sort of sitting in the pub, and like he's invisible, most people can't see him, he's under the cloak. But even without the cloak, he's feeling really isolated. You know, everyone around him has things happening, and it just feels like he's forced to feel like an outsider looking into other people's happy, relaxed, and like low stake lives.
Yeah, he reflects about how he would be excited for the tournament if he wasn't participating in it, because he would still have Ron, and it'd be exciting to see Cedric do the tasks and not have that like weighing on him.
It reminds me of something I'm sure we all do, and I do a lot, which is like when you're in a situation where you're not really happy, you imagine what circumstances would have allowed you to be happy there. So in Harry's case, he's imagining how it would be if he had not been selected, how he could have been a part of it, how he could have been talking with his friends, could have been laughing, could have been engaging in that. And he's just sitting there like wishing and like daydreaming about how good and included and warm he could feel in this moment instead of being isolated. And I think it's really interesting how they made him invisible during this scene when they did not have to, because it really, like, being invisible, you have this cloak between you and them, so you're even more separated and disconnected from the people around you. And like it really hits home how isolated Harry is sort of a lot throughout the series, and how even when he's not in the middle of a active fight with Voldemort, he always has so many things weighing on him, and it sort of always separates him from just like the regular problems in daily lives of other students. Like he just can't be as stressed about an upcoming exam or a teacher giving too much homework when he has legitimate adult level serious concerns and consequences around him. Like he's forced to be isolated and separated and on his own so often, and it's really, really well portrayed in this scene.
Or Harry. Later on, Harry does go to meet Hagrid, despite Hermione worrying that he's gonna miss his meeting with Sirius tonight. But Hagrid doesn't go straight to the Forbidden Forest. He goes to the Beauxbatons' carriage, and he ends up meeting with Madame Maxime.
Picking up his hot date. And Hagrid, ever so fluent in French, says bonsoir. Spelt bong sewer instead of bonjour. And oh my gosh, I read it and I was like, my brain like skipped over it. Like I saw the letters, knew it wasn't bonjour, and was like, oh, he wants it to be bonjour. He's doing bad French. But then I went back and said, what did he actually say instead of bonjour? Because sometimes your brain does that. It like fills in, knows what's trying to be done, and hops over. And I went back and like read the words, and I was like, he literally walked up and said, bonsoir, bonsoir. Like just...
Yeah, that's in the movie too, and I can hear it in Robbie Coltrane's voice, and it's oh good. But yeah, Hagrid basically invited Harry along on his date with Madame Maxime, and cringe.
Yeah, that's like a nightmare dream. Like that's worse than like the dream where you go to school naked. It's worse than that. The dream where you're invisible and watching your teachers have dates. Nightmare.
Harry knows that he's basically third wheeling a date, but Madame Maxime does not know Harry's there.
Good thing she's not like too flirty or, you know, raunchy or anything. You know what I mean?
Does she even know it's a date? Who knows? But
I don't think I think she knows Hagrid thinks it's a date, and I think she knows she's going to discover things that will benefit her school. I don't know if she wants it to actually be a date.
Yeah, she's sussing Hagrid out. But, you know, we find out that dragons are the task, and Charlie's there.
Charlie! I'm so excited. I love Charlie.
But it feels kind of weird. Like, we see the dragons and how, like, they basically, Charlie says they had to, like, put them under sleep to bring them here, and they're all pissed off. But it just feels very cruel to forcibly bring dragons away from their habitats and their sanctuaries just for a tournament challenge, because it feels very performative. It feels like it's just for entertainment, really. There's no purpose to it. You're stressing them out for no reason.
Yeah. Things like the running of the bulls or other things where like you're putting an animal in danger to entertain humans is always a little questionable. They're not prioritizing the dragon's health, safety, or happiness, that's for sure. And also, they could just flat out die. Like, they did not prepare the students for this competition, let alone give them rules about what spells are and are not allowed to be used against the dragons. Like, Harry just learned Avada Kedavra. He could just kill a dragon.
Yeah, it's really strange. Like, this is like their task. I think they say it's to test their daring, but like all the champions find out about the task and know it's dragon, so they're all prepared. But the challenge was for them to go into it blind.
Mm-hmm. So like the challenge was showing up,
which is crazy. Yeah, it was like you weren't supposed to know what it was, but all of them ended up finding out. So none of them went into it blind. They were all prepared to like do it, but it's still crazy that like they were supposed to go in and just not expect to see a dragon there. But yeah, going back to Charlie, it's so cool to see Charlie here because we don't get him in the films, and I feel like this would have been a great scene to see Charlie in.
And it didn't have to be a lot. Like, they didn't have to have the conversation bits. They could have just shown us an obviously red-headed dragon tamer close enough up that those who need it to be satisfied can be like, that's Charlie Weasley. He made it into the movies, you know? Now all we actually get of Charlie is that blurry picture of them on the trip to Egypt. Like, that's all the Charlie we get. That's not Charlie. I do think it's funny, though, how when Charlie sees Hagrid and Madame Maxime, he's being, like, sarcastic, and he's like, oh, romantic date idea, Hagrid. But, like, absolutely that is actually Charlie's idea of a romantic date. I understand it's canon, and he's saying it's crazy to do that, but I don't believe that, because I think Charlie's idea of a romantic date is exactly bringing someone to see some dragons. Like, it's like dudes with nice cars who are like, oh, I'll pick you up in my, like, it's part of the, I'll woo her with my nice car, or I'll woo her with my being good at whatever hockey. Charlie's thing is dragons. Like, to me, that is what he would pull out on a date to impress a gal. Quit pretending that's not what you would do, Charlie. Stop lying to yourself.
But Hermione is just kind of sick of the boys fighting right now. She said that she wasn't going to get involved, but she's been pestering Harry, and I'm assuming pestering Ron about it. And Hermione says to Harry that you miss Ron, and Harry knows he misses Ron. Because Harry and Hermione are friends, and they love each other, but fundamentally, I think that they're very different people, and they enjoy different things. And it's actually kind of amazing that Hermione doesn't change, like, her routine, her interests, because Harry's hanging out with her all the time. She's like, well, after class, I'm going to the library, so you can either hang out with me at the library, or go do whatever you want, because I'm going to the library. And I do feel like, as 14, like, I feel like in some situations it may feel a bit pressured to, like, appease the other friend, but she's just like, nope, I'm doing my own thing. You can come or not.
And I love that for her. It's a certain amount of like self-assuredness and like, I'm not changing my life just because you made choices that are affecting you. Like, I want to be your friend and support you, but I made none of the choices that led to you and Ron not being friends, and I'm not going to suffer for them. Like, so I'll be there for you, but from the library. You know, she wants him to meet her halfway. She doesn't want to do all the work to be Harry's one and only friend. He has to do some of the work too to be her friend.
Yeah, and Harry does reflect that he does miss Ron, because with Hermione, it's a lot of like, you're going to the library and you're doing things that she enjoys, and he misses Ron and, you know, just goofing off and laughing and the things that they used to do together when Hermione was off doing her own thing.
Yeah. She's probably a little annoyed. She's probably a little bit like, oh, I hope they become friends again so I can study alone. Victor Crumb breathing over my shoulder is one thing, but Harry also complaining across the table is entirely different.
Speaking of Victor Crumb, he's in the library a lot too, which Harry is noticing, which I think's interesting.
You know he's a bibliophile. He just loves a good book.
And it's interesting what Hermione says about Victor Crumb, because his groupies are there, and she says that, like, basically says that he's not even, like, good-looking. So she's saying that he's not conventionally attractive, and they only like him because it's famous. And I think that's part of the reason why Crumb likes her, because she doesn't see him for who he is.
Yeah. I think it's a little bit like, if everyone is into you, it's like, A, it's annoying because they're always following you around, but B, like, I think especially, like, Crumb is an athlete. He likes to, like, win things and earn things. And I feel like every girl just following you around gets annoying. And the idea that, like, Hermione, he has to woo, you know? Hermione, he has to, like, put in work. And, like, if she decides to like him, it's not because he's Victor Crumb. It's because he did things properly. He did something right. You know? And I can see why that's very appealing. But I love when Hermione's trying to talk about why people love Crumb. And she's like, it's just because he does that wonky faint thing.
And then Harry's just like, I miss Ron.
I'm like, Hermione can be so funny sometimes. That wonky faint thing. I love it so much.
But I do think Victor and Hermione are kind of just like, it's like the celebrity kind of trope where you have like a famous character and like their love interest is usually the one person that doesn't either know they're famous or care that they're famous.
Literally that Disney Channel movie Starstruck, where the only girl who's not into the boy band or like the pop star guy is that one girl. She's like, oh no, I'm not into you. And he's like, well, I'm immediately interested in that.
Yeah, but the first task is approaching, and Harry has this line about where he's thinking about when you dread something, time seems to like speed up to it because you're dreading it, and that is so real. Everything I don't want to do always comes so quickly, and when the things that I'm looking forward to, it seems like time goes so slow.
Mm-hmm. And time moves the slowest when you're in the chair at the dentist.
Oh, I just had this other point about when they talk about going to Hogsmeade, she's like, oh, let's go to Hogsmeade together. And he's like, well, what about Ron? Don't you want to go with him? And she blushes. So I just think that was an interesting tidbit there.
Oh, so maybe she did want to go with Ron.
And that's when she kind of voices like, oh, I thought we'd meet up with him. And Harry's like, fuck that. I don't want to see that guy.
It's really fun to contemplate during times like this how aware of their feelings Ron and Hermione are. Because it could easily be like Hermione's already, like, we don't know. Hermione could already be like poster above the bedroom wall, like level fangirl crushing on Ron, and we don't know because we don't get that perspective. She could be spending more time with Harry than Ron because she knows it's going to make Ron miss her more. Like, she could be playing chess when Ron doesn't even know they're playing a board game. You know what I mean? Like, we don't have enough, like, we're not sure. We don't know yet. And like, in my mind, kind of, Hermione didn't just like not be into Ron romantically and then become into Ron romantically and then start being in love with Ron. Like, I figure it goes through phases of like cute little childhood crush, and then he's annoying and you don't care, and then he becomes a teenager and you start to look at him different. You're like, oh, he's changing. I like this. Like, I feel like there's periods of time where Hermione has a crush on Ron and periods of time where she doesn't, and it's not just like she doesn't and then she does.
I always feel like Goblet of Fire, I don't know if she's really sure she likes Ron, but she's aware that she feels differently towards him than Harry, because Harry's always been very staunchly a friend. And when her and Ron have that kind of like jealousy thing, and then I feel like she kind of realizes it probably closer toward the Phoenix, but she does have feelings for him. But Ron takes a long time.
Yeah, well, boys.
Because he has like a lot of like, you know, like self-esteem issues, and I don't think he really realizes how he felt until he fucks it up in the sixth book. Harry does make it in time for his conversation with Sirius in the fire, and he just found out about the dragons, so he's just kind of just like, oh my god, what is my life? And he's just basically dumping everything that's ever happened this last like 2 weeks onto Sirius, every bad thing that's happened so far. Ron not talking to him, being put into this death tournament, dragons, the school being dicks to him.
And honestly, Sirius has some like really good thought out points. Like, he's making connections. He's next level, like, theorizing. Like, he sort of immediately was correct about Mad-Eye Moody's attack from earlier in the summer being legit. I mean, it's not exactly how it went down because Mad-Eye Moody didn't come out of that okay. But like, he was totally correct, and he's probably the first one to like A, make that connection, and B, tell Harry that that's an option. And also, Sirius was entirely right about Bertha Jorkins. He's like, hey, she's gone missing. She might have known about this tournament. She wasn't the smartest tack in the box, nor the, you know, yellow crayon. She just could have easily have told all that stuff to Voldemort. What do we know? And like, such good connections, predictions, like, it's great. Sirius just like lays it all out correctly in like one short phone call.
He's really great at reassuring Harry too. He's just like, Harry has all these things going on, and he's like, okay, let's focus on like, you know, the most important parts, like this person trying to kill you. Let's get you past the dragons, and we'll deal with that first, and everything else we can sort of after. Because Sirius is in survival mode, but of course, once Sirius is about to tell Harry what to do about the dragons, he hears something, so Sirius leaves, and it's just Ron coming down, wondering why Harry's, like, not in bed. I'm like, Ron, come on!
Honestly, I would be so furious if Sirius's answer about how to get past dragons was interrupted. And, like, I know it's not Ron's fault, but it's such a horrible timing. Like, it's such a moment of frustration for a reader. You're like, no, just say, like, one word. Like, Hermione's smart. Sirius could just say the name of the spell or the name of the potion or whatever. And then Harry and Hermione could go research it in the library or whatever. But, like, he doesn't even get it out. I'm like, no, like, you saying that one extra word probably won't get you extra caught, but it will keep Harry from getting extra eaten by a dragon. Like, I'm mad at Sirius for not just, like, blurting it out quickly on his way out, And I'm mad at Harry for not being waiting, like letting Sirius hang up. And I'm mad at Ron. And I know Ron didn't do anything wrong, but his timing is so bad. He could have hypothetically just gotten his friend killed.
Yeah, and Harry kind of, like, gets really mad at this point because he's been going through it. He's been dealing with a lot, and Ron just kind of ruined his one chance to really have, like, a good conversation with Sirius and also find out how to get through this first task. And Ron comes out, and Harry doesn't even tell him who he's talking to because he's mad at Ron now, and it's like all his anger he's been bottling up with Ron not talking to him all comes out.
Yeah. I mean, Harry was finally going to get a solution to the big problem, and Ron showed up at the worst time and ruined that. And so that's who you blame, even if it's not entirely Ron's fault. And Harry says something to Ron that is really, really mean. And honestly, it's no pun intended, but it's very cutting. And he says, he throws something at Ron.
The badge.
The badge, right? And he says, maybe you'll get a scar. It's all you've ever wanted. And it is so cutting. And it gets right to the base of Ron's issue with, like, everything, you know? And it's so heartbreaking and so sharp. And it's sort of the first time we realize that Harry is aware of how deep Ron's, like, jealousy issues run. And instead of it coming out of a place of empathy, it comes from a place of, like, pettiness and frustration. And, like, they say that the people who know you the best can hurt you the most. And I think this is one of those moments exactly, because there's a million things you can say to Ron that are mean that won't hurt him that much. But that's, like, bringing to the forefront something Ron's probably known for a while but is embarrassed about and hasn't really come to terms with, his jealousy issues and, like, the underlying deepness of those issues. And then also to have it presented to you in such a petty manner just, like, hurts. Especially coming from one of the first times where we see Harry really understanding Ron's jealousy, to have it come from this place, it's just, like, so painful. Like, it's such a cutting, sharp, mean comment. And, like, I don't blame Harry because I know how frustrated he is, but it's like he threw, you know, one rock and it hit the weakest point.
I do feel like this moment, though, is what kind of wakes Ron up, hearing Harry say it. Because to Harry, like, this is just so petty and stupid because he's just like, I need you right now. Like, you're my best friend and you're not talking to me for something over that I can't control. But Ron also can't control it because it's just his feelings of insecurity and being second best and jealousy coming up that, like, he just can't be around Harry right now. I feel like this is the moment where he's just like, in the long run, this is kind of stupid. Like, do I really want this for myself? And he's able to kind of get over it and apologize to Harry. But he kind of needs Harry to say it to him.
Yeah. He exposed the wound, and then Ron could address it once he realized how deep it was.
Yeah, because Harry and Ron don't talk about really, like, their feelings or just, like, emotional things. They kind of, like, they always tiptoe around it. They really need Hermione to be kind of, like, forcing it out of them. And it's only really in moments of, like, extreme stress and anger where they're just like, this is a thing!
Yeah.
Ron actually comes down because he noticed Harry wasn't in bed, which is what he starts to say before Harry kind of gets mad at him. So I feel like he's obviously, like, aware of Harry and what's going on. And I think deep down, like he's obviously worried about him. He knows what's coming, and even though he can't really force himself to be around Harry right now, he just he's his friend and he worries about him. And Harry mentions that he doesn't know if Ron came back to bed or not. So I can just imagine Ron just sitting by the fire and kind of having this talk with himself where he knows deep down he's being stupid and, like, he needs to get over these feelings because Harry needs him right now and Harry is his friend and Harry didn't ask for any of this.
Yeah, it's such a rough scene because you get so frustrated for Harry missing out on those final few seconds of the call that are going to be the solution. And then at the same time, like, Harry shouldn't be mad at Ron about it, but you also went through those moments with Harry, so you as the reader are also mad at Ron when he comes down those stairs. And then when Harry makes that remark to Ron, you're reminded of what Ron's going through, because you kind of forget sometimes because you stay with Harry. You forget that Ron has some valid feelings and his own experiences and his own trauma, and, like, that needs to be understood. And when Harry makes that cutting remark, it makes me feel guilty because I was mad at him for coming down those stairs. And it's so interesting, like, the emotional journey.
It's hard hearing Ron because you see both sides and, like, they're not all totally right or wrong. It's like they're just both in their feelings right now. And it's like, I think it's really great that they were able to work through it themselves, basically, because they're only 14 here. And this is a big thing to kind of, like, have to, like, comprehend.
Yeah.
I just remembered my point about the Ron Hermione stuff from earlier. But we were talking about how we see the series through Harry's perspective. So we're only getting like Harry's perspective of like Ron or Hermione, and we don't know what Ron and Hermione do when Harry's not around. And also Harry's kind of really oblivious, and he just kind of like, living in his own world. But I mean, to be honest, he has a lot going on. But I do find it interesting that people that don't really like Ron and Hermione and say it kind of came out of nowhere or doesn't make sense, that like we don't know what Ron and Hermione are doing. But they're obviously friends.
Yeah, Harry is not observant enough.
They could be doing anything.
Literally, they could have been dating since grade 4, and no one would know because Harry just because they wouldn't be making out in front of Harry because 3 people in a room and 2 of them are making out is probably going to make someone uncomfortable. But he just doesn't pay enough. Like I've seen all kinds of posts about about crazy things that could happen and Harry wouldn't even notice. You know what I mean?
It's kind of like a meme at this point where it's just like Harry is really oblivious and doesn't notice things until they're like right in front of his face. But yeah, Harry's other stuff to do.
And it's like he's got a lot going on, so it makes sense why he's distracted. He's not looking to his right, he's not looking to his left, he's not looking behind him, he's looking in front of him because he knows Voldemort's going to jump out at any moment all the time. But that does mean that a lot of stuff happens to his right and his left that he does not realize, and so we as the readers have no idea about unless we sort of make up headcanons.
Yeah, and it's fun because in Half-Blood Prince, when Hermione does ask Ron to the party, Harry kind of has this like existential crisis where he's like, holy shit, like what if my friends date? And then what if they break up? And it's really funny.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's not like Hermione hasn't put up with Harry and Ron breaking up. So it's only fair that they put up with it anyway.
Harry's like, I love my friends, but what about me?
What if their love inconveniences me?
Yeah, but I love seeing Ron and Hermione in the background, especially this is a big turning point, I think, in their relationship and seeing kind of things that they say and things they do around Harry that Harry's not really picking up on. But Harry's not there all the time, so we're kind of having the clues of when they kind of develop feelings and how things change for them, which I love seeing as a big Ron and Hermione supporter. But do you have any other points before we wrap up?
I hate Rita Skeeter. I can't wait till she gets her comeuppance. I cannot stand Colin Creevy. He, honestly, it's just a lack of social understanding. And someone just needs to sit him down and say, listen, it's cool that you think Harry is great. And but Harry is just your classmate. And you have to understand that anything you say publicly about Harry becomes a big deal. And Harry does not want it to be a big. So don't speak publicly about Harry Potter and don't treat him like he's Justin Timberlake or whatever, because he really doesn't want that. And most people have sort of gotten over Harry's celebrity status and are just over it. And I think that's what Harry wants.
Yeah, he just wants to be a normal kid.
And Colin doesn't realize that he's just being so embarrassing and socially unaware. And
now he's teaching Dennis to be socially unaware.
Poor Dennis.
Yeah, a lot happens in this chapter. There was a lot leading up to the first task, and it's crazy, but I'm just really looking forward to Ron and Harry making up.
Yeah. You know what? You know who's the MVP of this chapter? Sirius. He was just spot on, He wasn't really there, but his head in that fireplace.
Yeah, we rag on Sirius a lot for being, emotionally immature, but right now when he's in, his survival mode and he's just, solving crises, he's a great guy to have in, a situation like this.
He's impulsive, but when he's not actually there, and he can only communicate scheduling times to talk, he's forced to think about things before he can act. So it makes him a little bit more responsible with what he says just because he thinks it through more. He can't make a rash decision because he can't tell Harry to do the rash thing immediately because he has to wait a night to talk to him. So I think that separation of him from the actual action forces him to think things through more than he normally would. And I think when he does that, he's very clever. He just doesn't do it very often.
He's obviously a smart man and a good guy to have. But yeah, we don't see his emotional immaturity too much in this book. But, leading into Order of the Phoenix, where things are a bit more stable, at least, revolution-wise, he gets a bit careless and everything. That's it for us for this episode. Thank you for listening. If you like this episode, please leave us a comment or review on Spotify. You can also send any questions or thoughts to potteryvisitedpodcast@gmail.com or reach out to us on social media, and we'll be back next time to discuss Chapter 20 of Goblet of Fire, the first test. We're finally getting somewhere into this tournament.
Halfway through the book, and there's gonna be some action.
And we will see you next time.
Bye.